Great. Well, I really appreciate the opportunity to attend the McPosium. I've been keeping up with the fabulous work you all are doing for a couple of years now, and it's truly an honor to speak with you today. So the title of my talk is Results Are In, Now What? So accessing research findings, but also really understanding what they mean for you and your family. So I want to tell you a little bit about Cori. Some of you may not be as familiar with our work. We are actually a nonprofit research institute. We were established through the Affordable Care Act, and our mission is to help people make more informed healthcare decisions. Oh, okay. Is that better? Okay. Improve healthcare delivery and outcomes by producing high-integrity, evidence-based information that comes from research that's actually guided by parents, caregivers, and the broader healthcare community. So we have three strategic goals to help us realize this mission. One is to increase the quantity, the quality, and the timeliness of useful, trustworthy research information available for people like yourselves to make important healthcare decisions, and also to really speed the implementation and the use of patient-centered outcomes research evidence. And we'll talk a little bit about the importance of timeliness and what we're doing at Cori to help influence that conversation. And then finally, we're also, our goal is to influence research funded by others to be more patient-centered. So I want to talk for a minute about the difference between patient-centeredness in research and patient and stakeholder engagement. These are two very popular terms that you may have heard, and they sometimes are used a bit interchangeably. And what we mean at Cori by patient-centeredness is that the research we fund, the projects must actually aim to answer questions and examine outcomes that are important to you and your family in the context of your preferences and your values. So the questions and outcomes should really reflect what you've decided is important to you, your children, and your families. Now, what we mean by patient and stakeholder engagement is that patient partners are actually partners in the research. They're not just subjects, or what I would prefer to use the term participants. So in the case of the Phelan-McDermid syndrome data network, you actually have a patient-led research project. Megan O'Boyle is the actual primary investigator for that particular study. There's also active and meaningful engagement between scientists, patients, and other stakeholders. And finally, that there's a community of patients and caregivers and other stakeholders that's generally had a relationship, much like I'm seeing this morning, the relationships in this room. It's evidence that you all have been working together as clinicians, researchers, and patients and parents for quite some time. So this is really what I would consider a model example for what we're striving to do at Cori. So if we're going to aspire to a truly patient-centered healthcare system, take a look at this pyramid and you'll see that really identifying these outcomes is really foundational to achieving a truly patient-centered healthcare system. And if you look at the arrow that reflects patient engagement, what that's meant to demonstrate is there's really opportunities for all of you to be participating in influencing culture change to have a healthcare system that is going to result in safer care and better outcomes for your children and your families. So while many of you are very focused on the research area in this continuum, the other important piece is when you have evidence, and so I think Jerry had mentioned there will be a discussion on guidelines. And so when we get to the purple middle bar there, which reflects policy, in order to really advocate for policy change in the form of guidelines or also with healthcare payers, you need to have access to the current state of the science and to evidence and research to inform those policies, which can actually then be implemented to improve healthcare services and ultimately care. Okay, so really this concept of having access to research findings and return of results is really rooted in ethical obligations that are in a couple of guidelines of ethical principles. So the Belmont Report are the ethical guidelines, the ethical principles and guidelines that really are the underpinnings of our current regulations for medical research that involves human participants. And there's three principles: respect for persons, beneficence, and justice. And so when you look at these principles as outlined in this report, what you'll see is that there's a demand that subjects enter into research voluntarily and with adequate information. And with adequate information, as you'll see in a moment, it's not just really fully understanding the risks and benefits of your participation, but also understanding plans to actually share outcomes and return results as well. There's also a principle of beneficence, and that principle means that you do no harm, and you should also work to maximize the possible benefits while minimizing the possible risks. And one approach to maximizing benefits is to make sure that the outcomes are available to the participants and their families. The Declaration of Helsinki, which is the World Medical Association's ethical guidelines, is very explicit about this under informed consent. All medical research subjects should be given the opportunity to be informed about the general outcomes and results of a study. So if you take a look here, this is from the Center for Information and Study on Clinical Research Participation. And as I mentioned, this is something that should be discussed up front. Return of results and sharing of outcomes from a study should really take place during the informed consent process. It should be part of the informed consent process. It sets the expectations early on. And then there's opportunities to review this with volunteers, make sure that they're reminded of this during their visits. And then the third arrow, where you have reminders and there's ongoing updates, I think actually the Phelan-McDermid Syndrome Data Network is a great example of this. So Megan has shared many anecdotes with me of where some of you have actually used the registry and the survey results as evidence. Like evidence standards are different for different activities. And so I know that parents have been able to use some of the registry findings to actually advocate for their children in IEP meetings. And this is a great example of why it's very important to think about opportunities, if you're a researcher, to actually provide updates. I'm seeing in a lot of our PCORI projects this is going on and people becoming more comfortable with this. I actually spoke to someone the other day who has been blogging about a very large observational study. It's a 5-year study, and she provides, as she's learning through the data, she provides ongoing updates. So this is something to think about when you're working on making plans and design for research. And as a researcher, it's something for you all to think about as well. And finally, communicating study findings. I mean, obviously they should be published in peer-reviewed journals, but also think a little more broadly about the opportunities to really share research findings, because what we really want to do is establish this cycle of education, trust, and engagement. This is really going to help improve the clinical trials research enterprise, if you will. You want people to be more engaged because they know that they're actually going to benefit from the research by being informed and be more engaged and really see the value in participating in the research. So when you saw our goals that we have at PCORI to achieve our mission, a lot of this is rooted in we have many mandates, legislative mandates, and one is to convey the findings of research in a manner that's comprehensible and useful to patients and providers for making healthcare decisions. And so PCORI is recently started to develop our policy around how we're going to fulfill this mandate. We will be creating lay summaries. It's important to understand that our portfolio is starting to mature, but the majority of our studies are still in progress. For all of our studies, there will be a standardized summary of the results for both patients and the general public. There'll be a 500-word lay abstract with a readability level of 6th to 8th grade. Our policy also accounts for the timeliness of research findings. I'd heard once, I think from the Institute of Medicine, that sometimes it takes 17 years for research to actually be implemented into practice, and this is unacceptable. We need research findings to be available in a timely fashion so they can be taken up to improve care. So summaries must be posted once they're approved by the awardee institution, but that cannot be any longer than 90 days after PCORI has accepted the final research report for one of the studies that we funded. So we'll post the summary on the website. There'll be a 500-word lay abstract, as I mentioned before, and a 500-word abstract for medical professionals. We also require all of the studies that we fund to be posted on clinicaltrials.gov, and there will be links when there's results available from clinicaltrials.gov as well. And we also really encourage awarding institutions to make every reasonable effort to ensure that participants and partners receive the lay abstract. It's actually one of our requirements in all of our proposals. We ask people to discuss how they're planning for dissemination of results, and to multiple communities, to the provider community, to the payer community, and to the patient and caregiver community as well. So these are plans that we're asking people to think about when they propose the research. All right, so as an engagement officer, I'm starting to see some very interesting proposals and concepts for sharing research findings, a number of formats. So I thought it might be useful for me to share some of these formats with your community so you can think about what may work best for you. I already mentioned the lay abstract and summaries. Graphical summaries, this is a little bit similar to your practice parameters infographics. I'm seeing people look at data visualization techniques and programs to help research findings be a little bit easier to understand, and also so they can be used in a more user-friendly format for with providers. It doesn't just have to be in print. There are question and answer sessions that many communities put together, in-person venues, so conferences such as this, and also professional conferences as well, are opportunities to disseminate research findings. Video clips, everybody loves a quick YouTube video, and so that's another great way to share research findings. Also developing decision support tools. So I think your practice parameters is a great first step toward developing a tool that can be used in consultation with your providers. And I think this is a really neat format, podcast. So I don't know how many of you listen to podcasts. I have this Amazon Echo at my house now, and in the morning, I'm a busy parent like many of you, and I'm packing lunches and getting everybody ready, and I tell this Amazon Echo, I say, Alexa, play my NPR, weekly update for health and medicine, and so I can listen to this podcast. So I think that's something to think about. And we've really seen some other very interesting practices. There's a field called the medical humanities, and there's many people who actually use theater and improv to communicate research findings and develop a call to action. We have one project in South LA that's looking to improve healthcare. They've done a number of different mental health studies, and the way that they discuss their research findings is that their researchers, their clinical community, and their patient communities come together for a good old-fashioned book club. And this has been a very effective practice to ensure that there's uptake of the research results and understanding of those results as well. So this is a sample summary. This is actually from our pediatric rheumatology network. I had asked them how they developed what they wanted in their summaries, their research summaries, and I thought I might share this with you. So essentially what they asked for is an introduction that's very brief. It's 250 words. And what they asked to have included in that summary is the type of study it was, how many people were in it, and what the demographics were. So the purpose of the study. So why was the study done? What were the main findings? So what you learned and what were the results? What the results mean for, in this case, people with Phelan-McDermid syndrome. What does it mean for you? What were the limitations of the study? So factors that were beyond the control of the study. And then what are the next steps? I think next steps often are very important, particularly in bench research. So why do you need another mouse model? So having that important, what are the next steps, was key for this community. And then there's a short conclusion, and they link to any available educational information. So I could see something like this possibly being embedded in your practice parameters as you develop more of an evidence base around those parameters. A few other considerations. So really, I think this is something that you're already doing, but partnering with your clinician groups to really help facilitate sharing and discussion of uptake of research findings. Something else to think about is how maybe you could provide links to summaries in actual visit summaries or discharge instructions as well. And you may want to think about using your practice parameters to embed other findings. So we would love to hear from you. I'm at Cori when I told my colleagues I was coming to meet with you all and discuss this topic. We're very interested in hearing feedback from you on what works from you and what your community needs. And so I think we're going to, oh, I was on perfect time. That never happens. Okay, so we have polls. Well, I think it might be okay if they're, I think it's okay. Open-ended is okay.
I think our first poll is up, if you want to vote really quickly. Or, yeah, you'll have
you could
to
type
enter.
in, I put up kind of it's called a Likert scale here, so feel free to type in one of those answers, but if there's something else, since it's open-ended now, please feel free to type that in. Type in one of those. Okay. The first one, I'm satisfied with my access to care in general.
The first one is, which formats are most useful for you to become a better, it's gone.
They don't have to be in any particular order, so.
Bear with us just a second.
Oh, so you're over here. So these are the open-ended ones. These are open-ended. Okay. Oh, you don't have the others? No problem. Okay. Well, let's do these open-ended ones.
As JB was talking, did you guys all receive the practice parameters? It's a little cartoon with pictures and arrows and kind of, yes, perfect. I'm so glad those were circulated. The Mount Sinai, so the question is up now, so you can answer while we're talking. The Mount Sinai group published a practice parameters paper a couple of years ago, and we've been circulating that through Facebook, through our website, through various means. And we just wanted to make sure that there was a really usable format for families so that you can take something to your pediatrician and talk about the referrals that your child might need, or take it with you to the neurologist and ask them about some of the things that are listed there. And while not everything is needed for every child, the purpose of this is to help guide your discussion with your physicians and other caregivers. And we hope this will be useful for you. And what we're wanting is a little bit of feedback on what kinds of things we can put together to help you better understand what's emerging from research and how you can actually use that in your own life. So I'm always open to those suggestions. I think most of you know how to reach me via Facebook or through my email address. Happy to do that. Okay. So has everyone voted? I don't know. Has anybody voted?
Some people are writing.
Okay, some people are still writing.
Make everything happen. I'm doing this right now. I saw some. It'll take them time to type. I love them on phone, so it takes time to do it in and out.
Okay. Well, we're getting organized up here. I may ask Dr. Moscone to come on up here. I think Dr. Kalevzon already had to catch a plane. Are you still here? Okay. Maybe Dr. Moscone. Our three co-organizers were Dr. Sahin, Dr. Kalevzon, and Dr. Moscone, and they helped to organize the scientific program. And I'm just wondering, if you want to offer up a few reflections on the program and on the meeting.
Well, first of all, thank you again, Geraldine, for letting me be part of this, and to the foundation for supporting this and making it happen. I'll say a couple things. One is that I think really the format of this program in the past day or day and a half have really sort of been a wonderful model for how to do this moving forward. I think it's really provided for a comprehensive synthesis of what's been going on in the research world, what we know, but I think it's really been a perfect venue for ensuring that families and researchers can really have a lot of in-depth interaction over a short period of time. So I think that's been wonderful, and I hope that all the people here have felt the same way. I think one point that I'll speak to, that I want to speak to, is there has been, I've heard a few parents, I've talked to a few parents who have said, well, you know, this is great. I'm maybe a little wary or weary of hearing that we just don't know yet. And when is this going to when's that switch going to be flipped, where we move from just collecting information to implementing information to make things different in terms of day-to-day care. And I guess I would just offer a hopeful message in that my truthful feeling on that is that as a researcher, I think I can speak for all the researchers here, we wish it moved faster. It's not that we want things to move slowly. But these things just happen, they don't happen in a linear way, meaning it's not just plodding along and it just improves slowly or gradually. But I do believe that these things happen in more qualitative shifts. In other words, advances happen and it does change things. And I think right now we're really, what I hope part of the message is, we're right in the middle of that. We're at this corpus where there's a lot of information coming in, and that is in large part due to the tremendous dedication and involvement that we've experienced as researchers from the families, from you all here, as well as additional families that couldn't make the meeting. And that is inspiring, I have to say, as a researcher, but it's been wonderful. So I hope you feel that. I hope you feel that it is coming together. I wish we all had conclusions and answers this weekend, but we don't have the answers yet. But I do have strong optimism that answers are coming. And so we're moving in the right direction.
Next question is up on Poll Everywhere. And thanks, Matt. And while we're responding to the poll, I will just remind you guys that we still have blood draws going on for the rest of the afternoon until 4 o'clock. And it is in villa number 4101. It's the closest villa to the conference center. Just walk out this door, down the hall, out to the villas, first villa on your left. We also, I know there were, I think threaded throughout all the discussions that we've had, there have been a lot of questions about genetics and gene deletion size and mutations of SHANK3. And if you would like to learn more about genetics, come to the genetics panel at 9 a.m. on Saturday, tomorrow morning. And there will be a more in-depth discussion. I think it's an hour and 15 minutes, so you can learn a lot more. And then there will be a Q&A. Now that genetics panel will be here in this room, and it will be live webcast. But for the Q&A, we're going to move, is it Caribbean 4? I believe we're moving to a nearby room. It's in the program guide, so that you guys can ask questions without that being broadcast. And I don't have it now, but when I have it, I will send out the link for the Developmental Synaptopathies Consortium, the Rare Disease Clinical Research Network that Dr. Gopal Srivastava mentioned, and I'll circulate that through Facebook. There is already a link on the Foundation's webpage for that if you're interested in participating. Okay, so do we have another poll question yet?
We do. I'm just trying to people have about 50 answers.
Okay.
They're still trickling in. So
Okay, we have to hurry up and answer so we can go to the next question.
we're going to the next question.
Okay, we're going to the next question. Is this the last one?
No, there's like 5 more.
5 more?
Some of those are those. Yeah, the strongly
Oh, can we do one more then? Okay. Okay, next one's up. We got a question. Are you going to make the PDFs of the posters available? And we did not plan to. I don't have them. Okay. So we actually have a few more questions, but I think what we're going to do is do it through social media, and we'll post a link through Facebook, and then we have, for most of you, I think you're probably on the local, what's it called, the Family Conference new Facebook page, and we'll post links there so that you can finish. So we really want more information from you about how we can do a better job of communicating. So if you would, check Facebook, and we'll post those links, and you can do, I think we've got about 5 more polls for you to do related to this topic. So thank you guys all so much for hanging in there. I hope it was a great opportunity for learning for you guys and for sharing your concerns. And we're going to do our best to take everything you've shared and use it to help drive research forward. Thank you.